So let's start with augmented reality, virtual reality, and health, and their applications that are related to assistive technology and rehabilitation engineering. First of all, I would like to go over an introduction and overview of what is augmented reality and virtual reality. What are the definitions? Then the relationship with health, and the objective is to explore available technologies and get you into some resources that are actually providing funding for this. So, and that's the whole thing. Technologies and the impact on health sciences, especially healthcare, that's what we do. And then some kind of projects and research. And I will show you a couple of places that call for proposals already. So the virtual reality, what is the definition? So works by implementing computer-based technology. You've been working with programming via MATLAB and Arduino for a while. And you've been working with SolidWorks and AutoCAD. So you have the basis actually to work on that. And the reason why we do that is in order to stimulate patient senses. So that's the whole thing. That's the goal. And to create illusion of reality. Can we build this? And there are toolboxes in MATLAB that can help you design virtual reality games and software. And we can go through this if you want to do more work on that. And it must incorporate vast amount of technologies. That's what we do, right? This is what we learned so far in order to achieve the goal of realism of the patient, which is an incorporation of perception and cognition. I'm learning more about this, but if you are interested in that, and you have interest, let's say, in psychology as well, that's really a good application for us to do. Now, the applications: sports, architecture, arts, entertainment, and medicine. That is what we want to focus on. So we have something called virtual reality. What is virtual reality to you? What is augmented reality? Now, mixed reality is a combination of both real world and digital world because we can make elements of each world interact with each other. Now, this is different from augmented reality. Augmented reality usually is a passive, environment. When it's active, things are interacting. That's now a mixed reality, which means I can, let's say, push a button somewhere in my environment, and something is going to be acted on the room. Pokemon game is an active one, because when you click on something happened, right? I don't know how do they play, but you acquire one of these Pokemons. And then the digital realities, that's something referred to the wide spectrum of technologies and affordance that include augmented, virtual, mixed, that stimulate reality in various ways. And for digital realities, this is something really cool in healthcare. When you think about it, can we do remote physical therapy sessions with it? Specifically when you want to do stimulation. So you don't have to be physically in the clinic, but you can do that. Now, this is going to reduce hospitalization time. We don't need to have big clinics. It's on call, on demand. So this is going to make healthcare cheaper because of the use of technology. All right, so those are the things that we would like to think about applications to do. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of software that actually applications that actually do exist. So one of them is called Cool. So this Cool application is available for online, and it was based on the research actually. So a group got funded to build this. So it's related to burns victims and wound care, and they want to see how people can tolerate pain immediately after the burn itself by keeping them busy playing a game or watching something, especially animals. So they had the highest pain tolerance level occurred when visual and auditory sensory inputs were combined. And that is when, they have to put skin grafting, and they have to take some skin out. And, if someone got burned, the clothing is going to mix with the skin. That need to be cleaned. That's a painful process. So how would they do this? They give them morphine, but still, it doesn't help. And in developing countries, especially in natural catastrophes and wars, there is no way to get the morphine the level that you want to. So what they do, they start doing this, and they found that if you have visual and auditory sounds, it's actually very, very helpful for people to tolerate pain. And sound or images on their own also, they have some tolerance, but they need to have some kind of moving things. The sound, the image and the sound together, and movies. And what they found that 60% of patients experience a more than 30% reduction in pain. That is huge for such an application to build. So that's one of the really successful projects with virtual reality that are there. Also, there's another project related to phobias. So people have spider phobias and other, phobias of other things. Now, here's the thing: if you're living in a place that there's no way for you to go, to avoid this, so what do we do? And that's a big psychological problem. If you want to train people in the military or in the first responders about their phobias, they need actually to be trained on something like this first. And one of the guys, this is called the Spider World and Fearless application that was developed. And this fellow is now playing with spiders. But at some places, I don't know if so phobias, actually, it's a scary thing. I know people that they have nightmares and then they start screaming, and even the tiniest, smallest insect, people go crazy. And I keep telling them, you are probably 1,000 times bigger the size of that thing. But it's phobia. It is phobia. You will have people who, let's say, have phobia of the dark. People that have phobia of heights. For healthcare, now people have phobias from blood, and phobias from needles, and especially children. So what do you do? Now these are the things that helpful. I don't care about spiders or insects, but when it comes to the healthcare, that's an important thing. And then let's say someone is traumatized, let's say because of an accident, car accident. Now they have phobia from driving cars. So what do we do? You need to train them with this. The same way we are rewiring our nervous system with repetitive exercises, that's the same process. Yeah, so this is what is important. Now, use in physical therapy. Now, this is what is important for us. Now, people after, let's say, stroke or after a medical condition, they cannot do the daily activity practices, and especially if they're living alone. And our society is, you see, people are more and more isolated, older, and living on their own. So we need to find ways to help them. So you can use this interactive and motivating atmosphere for them. And then you have the intensity of positive feedback while retaining the movement. Then you have experiences that are both pleasing and rewarding at the same time. And if you follow how social media works, we are actually addictive to the adrenaline that comes from people liking or sharing or commenting on your stuff. So that reward is actually important for motivation. So you can use it for a good use rather than a bad application. And also the patients and therapists can interact with a multisensory and dimensional environment. Now, the key word for us here is the sensory, right? Because that's what we want to do. And that comes down to the sensors that you can use by doing that. And that's another application. Remember when the Human Motion Lab, we have infrared cameras. You can use a similar system that when you move your hand, an avatar will move the hand, and then we can do the sensing of what's happening to there. So that's an important aspect to it. Now, Cleveland, this is a link you can check. It's an old video, but Cleveland Clinic started actually a virtual reality study for Parkinson's disease. And that's what I want you to look at if you're interested in healthcare, in graduate studies, that Cleveland Clinic and Cleveland State University and Case Western Reserve actually are involved into the virtual reality field. So that's something really, really cool to look at. Now, we don't intervene unless we have a medical problem. We agree on that, right? So we are not going to develop something to be used, using this technology without a medical condition. So stroke patients, arthritis, amputees, joint replacement, disc disease for the spine, the spine, bone injuries, whiplash. Find a medical condition and then try to use all the technologies to solve that medical condition. All of these medical conditions There's serious problems, a lot of people, and there is a value in actually using virtual reality. So you can optimize, accelerate the recovery process using virtual reality. And that's what I want from you to think about if you are interested in writing a grant about this, a proposal. We would like to optimize and accelerate the recovery process using such technologies. And then we can get funding from people to test a couple of theories and see if that's working or not. Now, how does virtual reality work? So we have something called a control environment. And that's what I like about virtual reality, because we are building that environment so that we can have repetitive measurement or activities. See this subject here, the HoloLens, whatever that thing, the virtual reality, and then we have these sensors and markers that we can look at the cameras. And because we are controlling the environment, each motor task is actually repeatable. And then you can assess. Otherwise, it will be a big mess for us to control. Now, also, simple tasks or more complex tasks, you can do both. Measures their success in real time because they are seeing it, right? And that feedback is very important. Track movement for analysis. That's what we need, analytics, right? And big data analysis and all of these things. And then you have to engage sensory feedback. And that's a very, very, clinically proven, useful, intervention to see the sensory feedback. So we talk about haptic devices, like what I'm telling you, that's haptic arm, whatever that thing is. So what is the meaning of haptic? It means interaction with a three-dimensional environment created in a computer. So that arm is not haptic unless I'm interacting with the software. Now, the first example, so Saif Ahmed, I think he is a Pakistani physician. And he was the first one in the world to do a surgery with an augmented reality, and it was streamed. While doing the surgery, things were popping up into the what is happening with pressure and temperature, and if you need to add, something or to cut something, request something from a nurse. So that was one of the surgeries. After that, a couple of physicians did a remote surgery with robotics. They were in the United States and they did the surgery in Africa. So that the hospital in Africa, they shipped for them that robotic setup system, and the physician were in the United States and they did the surgery using the augmented reality. So they're looking at the robots are cutting stuff and they're seeing everything and they're controlling everything from there. One of the best applications for virtual reality is training physicians on surgery, students. One of my students from Jordan, she went to Australia to do her PhD, and she worked with a company that is developing a training virtual reality application for medical degree students. She finished her PhD, and the company is based in Australia, and they want to work in the US, but she doesn't want to come here. I keep telling her, come on, you should come. It's a fun, experience to work for the company here in the United States. But yeah, that's I know someone who did this, and she hates programming, but she ended up doing a lot of programming and optimization for that software. So there is something called mind maze as well, rehabilitation for people with stroke, and what will happen is that to get the best outcome, you need an early start with this, the use of the tool, objective markers. That's where we come when we collaborate with healthcare providers. Can we identify what are the things that we'd like to measure? Just like with trainers, right? With the sports trainer, I don't know what's important, but if we work together, we can make get the technology working for all of us. Simulation of daily activity live, and then maximize practice time. Remember when I told you one of the biggest problem is compliance, and it takes a long time. If you add a gaming aspect to it, or an interactive reality, it increases that time by a lot. Now, the virtual reality labs that they focus on this. So Stanford is one of them. They have something called Virtual Human Interaction Lab, and you can apply for a master's or PhD and work for them and become a postdoc, and you can spend a long time working with those people. Also, the University of Southern California, they have something called the Institute of Creative Technologies. Now, funding opportunities. What we can do now, actually, for us? So there is, that we have the Department of Health and Human Services. Under this department, we have the NIH. Now, we have inside the NIH the National Library of Medicine, and inside it they have the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. Now, these guys, the NNLM, those are the guys who want to fund virtual reality in healthcare. So they call for proposals every year, and they have open calls along the entire year. Just submit a proposal, and they will fund you. Now, the only thing that you want to have is that an affiliation with an academic institution. So yeah, keep that in mind. I don't want once you graduate and you go to the whatever after you finish, keep that in your mind. You can have funding for a business just by writing a proposal related to the technologies that you have. Now, for this opportunity, we are in Region 6 for the NNLM region. That's here. And it's Illinois, Indiana, all these states. And they have calls for proposals. I don't know how many of them are type of awards available in Region 6, but you can check that on your time. Go to this website and look at what are the regional opportunities for Region 6. This is the trickiest part, which is the instructions. So you need to spend a couple of days reading this. But writing the proposal and submitting it just, within a week, you should be able to write and submit a proposal for a call. If you really want to work as a research engineer or research and development engineer, you can start in a university and then you move on with that thing. So that's all what I wanted to talk about virtual reality. Last time, me and Sydney, we talked about the big data. Same thing goes there. If you like to have a project with data analytics and AI with virtual reality and sensing and sensory data, that's what we should be looking at.